Hello everyone, peace be upon you all. Welcome to the fourth video where we learn about Ibn Taymiyyah's book Bayan al-Talbis, or the demonstration of deceit. And we continue learning about Jahmism from the Oxford Handbook of Islamic Theology. Last video we have learned about Frank and his argument that Jahm has been a Neoplatonist, and we have learned that this theory was wrong. So now we are going to learn about another theory about the origin of Jahmism by Harry Wolfson. Let's continue reading. Some years before Frank wrote his article on Jahm's dependence on Neoplatonism, Harry Wolfson had published a series of articles on the Middle Platonic, Neoplatonic, Patristic, and Muslim theories on divine attributes. Patristic means the Christian theories by the early church fathers. According to Wolfson, the problem of the divine attributes in Muslim dialectical theology, or kalām, originated under the influence of the Christian doctrine of the Trinity, and it has a twofold aspect, an ontological and a semantic. Now, what is this problem of the divine attributes? This problem consists of two questions, a semantic one and an ontological one. The semantic issue is as follows. What does the Quran mean when it says, for example, that God is the wise? Does it mean that there is divine wisdom existing as a being in God? And here we see immediately the ontological question. Can there be attributes existing as real beings in God in the first place? Let me illustrate to you the problem using an analogy. Here we have a human being with the symbol H. His mind is empty. He's just a human, the essence of humanity. Then we have here a book with knowledge. When I read the book, the knowledge in the book is transferred into my mind. Now I'm a human plus knowledge, H plus K. Now, is it the same case for God? Is God God, i.e. God, plus knowledge, plus power, plus wisdom, plus life, and so on? Does the attributes of God exist as existence, as beings that exist in addition to God's essence? Another way to visualize it is like this. Here we have God's essence plus his attributes that are connected to him. Another way we could symbolize it is like this. God's essence plus knowledge plus power and so on equals God. So God is composite. He consists of parts. His essence plus his attributes. Another way to visualize it is like this. Here we have God, the big circle. Then inside we have his essence, his attributes, and so on. So the problem is that if we acknowledge that there exists attributes in addition to God's essence, we face the problem of having our divine model resemble somewhat the Christian Trinity. It would seem that we believe in multiple gods. If we don't acknowledge it, we'd have to face another problem. That is, having a divine model resembling an empty human. So God would be without knowledge, power, and so on. Now, I'm not saying that there is no solution. I'm just trying to present the problem and what's at stake exactly. Now, what is the choice of the mainstream? What did they find to be more true? In reality, most classical Muslim theologians have believed that indeed the attributes in the Quran stand for real incorporeal beings which exist in God from eternity, and that does not imply polytheism, because these attributes don't have a mind of their own. They are not independent persons. Rather, they are the attributes of God. And that's why they are called by their opponents as as-sifatiyya, as the attributists. And here we have a brief demonstration of attributism by Imam al-Tahawi in his creed. He has said, God has existed with his timeless attributes before his creation, which added nothing, i.e., the creation added nothing to his essence that was not already among his attributes. As his attributes were before creation, so will they continue forever. Al-Tahawi is not any person. Many of al-Tahawi's contemporaries praised him and noted him as both a reliable scholar and narrator of hadith. He was widely held as a distinguished and prolific writer and became known as the most learned jurist among the Hanafis in Egypt, despite having knowledge of all the schools. Over 15 commentaries have been produced on his creedal treatise, the Creed of al-Tahawi, including commentaries by the Hanafi jurist Ismail ibn Ibrahim al-Shaybani and the Taymi inclined Ibn Abi al-Izz. Now that we understand what the problem of the divine attributes is, we would like to ask, how did it exactly originate under the influence of the Christian doctrine of the Trinity, as Wolfson claims? To do so, we would have to read his article. He says, let us then reconstruct the logical situation which could have led to the substitution in Muslim theology of divine attributes for the Christian Trinity. From the passages quoted above, as well as from other passages, we may gather some of the main features of the Christian doctrine of the Trinity as it was presented to the Muslims. These main features were four. First, there was the Orthodox Christian belief in the equality of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, each of them being God. Second, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit are each a hypostasis, or person, aqnum in Arabic, or a thing, ma'na in Arabic. Godhood, which is common to all three, is their common essence or substance. Third, the principle of differentiation. They are all equal, okay? So what is the difference between them? If they are all equal, what is the principle of differentiation? The principle of differentiation between these three persons or things is that the Father is goodness or essence or self-existence or existence. The Son is life or wisdom or knowledge or reason or the Logos. The Holy Spirit is life or wisdom or knowledge or power. Fourth, these three sets of terms by which the three persons or things are described are called properties. These distinctions, these principles of differentiation are khawas in Arabic, or characteristics, sifat. Let us now imagine that when the Christians presented this conception of the Trinity to the Muslims, the latter quoted against it the Quranic verses, say not three, God is only one God, and they surely are infidels who say God should be disbelievers. They surely are disbelievers who say God is the third of three, for there is no God but one God. Undismayed by this answer, however, the Christians, we imagine, continued to argue that their God is also one God, maintaining that the three persons or things are all one in essence, differing only in the peculiarity of their properties or characteristics. In fact, they would say these three persons are only properties or characteristics of God, though properties and characteristics which have a real existence in God, where in the Quran they would challenge the Muslims, do you find a denial of properties or characteristics in God? Moreover, the Christians would argue These three persons or things or properties or characteristics, which we call Father and Son and Holy Spirit, are descriptions of God as existing or good and as living, knowing, powerful. Would you deny such descriptions of God? Does not the Quran itself describe God as the existent, Al-Qayyum, as the living, Al-Hayy, as the knowing, Al-Alim, as the powerful, Al-Qadir, as the merciful, Ar-Rahim, which means that he is good? And do you not admit that the property or characteristic of existence or goodness, which we attribute to the Father in our Trinity and the Quran attributes to God, stands for something real? Why then should you not admit that the properties or characteristics of life and knowledge or power stands also for things which are real? The Muslims, we assume, must have felt compelled to admit the cogency of the reasoning, meaning the strength or the convincingness of the reasoning. Still, they were bound by the Quran to reject the Christian doctrine of the Trinity. Why then was the doctrine rejected in the Quran? They asked themselves. And in order to answer this question, they began to study carefully the verses in the Quran in which the Trinity is rejected. From these verses, they gathered that the Trinity was rejected not on the ground that life and knowledge and power, meaning the second and third persons of the Trinity, which the Christians variously identified with the Son and the Holy Spirit, were conceived of by them like existence or goodness as being each a real person or thing. In other words, from these verses they gathered that the Trinity was rejected not on the ground that the second and third persons of the Trinity were conceived of by them, by the Christians, as being each a real person or thing, but on the ground that knowledge and power or life or the Son and the Holy Spirit were conceived of by them as being equal with existence, equal with the Father in divinity, and that like existence, they are each called by them God. And so the Muslims finally met the challenge of the Christians. They said, "We indeed admit that life and knowledge, or knowledge and power, or life and knowledge and power represent real things, just as existence represents a real thing. But we do not admit that they are equal with existence in divinity, and that they are each to be called God in the same way as existence is called God. These attributes of life and knowledge, or of knowledge and power, or of life and knowledge and power, are indeed to be taken as things existing in God from eternity and inseparable from Him, but they are not to be called God. There is no God but one God. The denial of godhood is one difference between the attributes of Islam and the second and third persons of the Christian Trinity. Another difference between them is the denial of any causal relation between the attributes and God. In Christianity, where the second person is said to be the Son of God, that very conception establishes a causal relation between them. A similar causal relation is conceived to exist also between the first and the third person, or between both the first and second persons and the third person. For the Holy Spirit was believed to proceed either from the Father alone, or from the Father through the Son, or from both the Father and the Son. In Islam, however, there is no causal relation between God and His attributes. Now, going back to the Handbook, we can understand what this phrase means. According to Wolfson, the problem of the divine attributes in Muslim dialectical theology originated under the influence of the Christian doctrine of the Trinity, and it has a twofold aspect. an ontological, and a semantic. And with this, we end the video, and thank you for watching, and goodbye. Peace.